Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. I'm Audley Stevenson, and this is the Audacious Living Podcast. Thanks so much for being here on the most audacious podcast on the web. I'm super appreciative that you've taken a moment out of your day and have chosen to spend it here with us as we continue our ongoing goal of helping you live your best audacious life ever. As always, I encourage you to connect with us through our social media channels. On Twitter and Instagram, our handle is The Audacious Pod. And then on Facebook, it's The Audacious Living Podcast. On YouTube, if you head over to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell, you'll be immediately subscribed. And I'd encourage you to do so across all our platforms. Like, follow, subscribe, and share. And let's keep those good conversations going. Now, on today's episode of the podcast, I'll introduce you to a first-time author by the name of Tyler McCalister. Tyler is a young man who recently wrote a book entitled Young, Grown, and Knowledgeable, What Every Young Adult Should Be Honing Right Now. Now, Tyler didn't set out to be an author. In fact, he shared with me that he never ever saw himself writing a book prior to actually doing it. But it's one of those things where the idea came to him and he just went with it. And that's so amazing. I absolutely love that. He just went with what he felt and he created something so special. Now, Tyler recognized that a lot of his peers didn't have what he had in terms of the plethora of mentors and family members and friends that helped him as he was growing up and that guided him and directed him and really spent some time showing him and teaching him important life lessons. You know, those life lessons have stayed with him as he grew and developed. And so when he wrote Young, Grown, and Knowledgeable, he essentially wanted to be the resource to his peers as they were entering into adulthood and pass along some of the same learnings that were taught to him. I truly commend Tyler for doing his part to help his own generation, and especially in this manner. And it's one of the reasons why I was so happy to have him on the podcast and so happy to give him an opportunity to share his story. So, without any further ado, here's my conversation with Tyler McCalister. Enjoy. So let's jump into your book, Tyler. It's called Young, Grown, and Knowledgeable, What Every Young Adult Should Be Honing Right Now. Right? I got it all. I got it all out, right?
You got it.
So give me the premise behind this. What made you write this book? Obviously, it's directed towards young people, trying to prepare them for life beyond the world of youth, right? And so talk about what sort of your premise behind this for you.
Right. So growing up, I had a plethora of mentors, family members, friends that taught me various things and traits that would help me as I enter adulthood. And I thought to myself, there's a lot of young people out there that don't have those resources, or, they never got taught these things. And I wanted to be that resource for them. And, they can look up to someone, especially someone their own age. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, that's rare. But I just wanted to be that for people that aren't so fortunate to have those kind of people in their life to guide them and, teach them things that they will face that they're not expecting to right now. So nice. That's kind of the premise behind it and the reason why I wrote it.
Right. Was being a book author, was that a goal for you, or where did that come from? Because first off, it's one thing to write a book, but it's another thing to write a type of book that can impact people potentially the way this one can.
Right. No, growing up, I never thought I would write a book. I was, it's funny. I was, last summer when I wrote it, I started writing it in last May. I was going to Costco with my mom and I was like, you know what, Mom, I think I'm going to write a book. She's like, really? Okay. What's it going to be about? I was like, at first I was kind of going on off of different genres like horror or romance, and somehow I landed on self-help for young adults. And then I remember when we bagged the groceries from Costco, I went upstairs to my room, got on my computer, and I was like, let's get started. So I just started writing. I didn't have a title. I didn't have a chapter. I just started writing. And I thought, I could put together some of the things that I've experienced and turn it into a great story that's relatable for young adults to understand.
So I'll give you my experience, and maybe it's the same similar for you. But oftentimes, so you talk, for example, being taught lessons in your youth, right? So when you're a young person, you're being taught these lessons or instructed them. I don't know what you, but I don't know how much attention I didn't pay a whole lot. I was like, yeah. And then you found later on in life, you reflect, you're like, oh yeah, I was told this. Oh, I did what this was told to me. I was taught that. Is that sort of a similar experience for you, or was it something I did? Maybe I'm a rebel. I don't know.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Growing up, I was taught these things, so I guess that's eventually, as I was figuring out my genre, I just naturally gravitated towards self-help. Yeah.
My mom used to say, bend the tree when it's young, right? So
right.
So those are the lessons. So those are things I was told as a kid, right? Like, all those, and they resonate with you. And I think what happens is you fall when you get in those situations, you fall back on that, and you're like, oh, and it's that moment of epiphany almost.
I agree.
So you broke your book down into 3 sections, right? Sharpen your mindset. The second one, self-care is the best care. And the last section was you're on your way. If you sort of can make the distinction between those 3 sections, then I don't want to sort of touch on two of those chapters in there, but maybe talk about what those 3 sections mean and what they're about.
Right. So I broke it down in these 3 easy parts because I think these are the tools that you need to get started. It's not much, because whenever we do something, it starts with your mindset, right? Before you eat something, before you talk, before you drive, you have to think about doing it. And so if you have a conscious mind and, you're not impulsive and you think about things thoroughly, that will set you up for great success. Like there's some, 56-year-olds that haven't grasped that yet. So if you grasp it now in your 20s, like sky's the limit.
Yeah.
So, and then going on to self-care, that's very, very overlooked. A lot of times we get caught up in work, we get caught up in, I have to do this and that, and you forget about you.
Right.
And no one's going to take care of you better than you and know you better than you.
Right.
So I want to emphasize that for young adults, like, hey, you're important too, not just your job, not just family. It's so, and then after that, once you're grown and you move out, go to college, trade school, whatever you do, you're on your way. You're on your way to success. So you got your mindset ready. You're taking care of yourself. Now the rest will take care of itself. So.
And so I appreciate that explanation, because I tell you something. When you break it down, it totally makes sense, Tyler. It really, really does. Everything starts with your mindset. I absolutely agree with you. I think you're bang on. Like the way you think about things, the expression, thoughts become things, right? And so the way you approach things mentally, the way you view things will sort of frame, how you see and how they actually are. I truly believe that. So the work around the mindset's so big. And I think, and I agree with you as well, that self-care often is overlooked. And, there is an emphasis on school, especially for young people, right? From their perspective, the emphasis on school, getting good grades, pleasing your parents, the obligation to your friends, right?
Right.
And all of these things, and we oftentimes get forgotten about that. And the interesting thing is, when you become an adult, people still forget about themselves, and they still have to be reminded of the importance of self-care. So I think those are good. And I think the last one is, when you're on your way. That's like, this is meant to be the springboard, right? And you're on your way to the good life, if you will. That all makes sense. I mean, that's how I see it. Is that in line with what you got in mind?
That's perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into I don't want to spoil it for our listeners, because I want them to go out and grab a copy of their book. But there are a few chapters I want to get to. We talk about a little bit. But also before we do that, you've got a military background, right? You're in the military.
I am.
How much did that influence into this?
The military did a lot, because the military it's like one big family, right? Like it's very big military, but it's small. So you might get done with your duty station, you go somewhere and you're like, hey, I remember you from basic training, or I remember you from this. And so similar to my football experience, it's like a big family, and everyone has a similar mindset and drive. So my military background definitely helped me to write it and formulate some ideas on how I can write to relate to young adults. So,
and then I would imagine the discipline piece is also quite big too, right?
Oh, most definitely. You have to be disciplined. Definitely.
Got you.
Yeah.
So in part one, the very first chapter is you have the right to do the right thing.
Right.
Explain what the premise behind that is.
So you have a right to do the right thing means, it's kind of broken down into two things. So it's you have a right to do what you feel is right. For example, I used the book, how my grandparents raised my mom and my dad. Or I'm sorry, my mom, and how my mom raised me and my brother. So neither of the two were wrong. They're very different. Neither of the two were wrong, but it's your preference, as long as it's not like illegal. And then doing what you feel is right is so I use my story for like basically a scenario, and basically making the right decision. So doing a decision that basically you go to your mom and say, oh, I did this, she's not going to be upset.
Right.
Or if you have to think about it, it's probably not a good idea, or it might ruin your career, your internship, whatever you have going for yourself. So there's a difference between doing what you feel is right and making the right decision for you, for your future.
Gotcha. And sometimes those two conflict, right? Those two,
they do.
They're not always in sync, and that therein lies a conundrum for a lot of people.
Exactly. That's big, and I just want young adults to understand that, because you're grown, you can do what you want, but make sure it's like good. You're not doing something that's gonna embarrass you or your family, or So
Tyler, what do you suggest when we get to those points of conflict? Like, how do you make those decisions then? Because we're always gonna be faced with tough decisions, right? Life is all about tough decisions. So what kind of things do we take in consideration when we're trying to figure out which way to go?
I would say what kind of helps me is I just think back to, like I was saying before, like, what would my parents think if I did this? And I just see the look on my mom, my dad's face of disappointment and grief. Like, I raised you better than that. And a lot of us don't take that for granted. Like, when you make a mistake, you represent somebody, your legal guardian, your parents. And I just think, I don't want to do that. Or I think about, like, for the military, I don't want to get a dishonorable discharge because I did something foolish, Right. So I just think about basically the missed opportunities I would have if I did something. Like, it would definitely cost me something of importance. And that's what kind of drives me when I have conflict and adversity.
Makes sense. I'm a big cookie fan. I like chocolate chip cookies. So you talk about even if the cookie crumbles, it's still edible, and I agree with that.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about that. Because what I'm hearing there, that you can always pick up pieces. Really, is that right? Where are we going with that?
Yeah. So you always start with the cookie, like the whole cookie, right? So it's whatever it could be. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it may not always work out, and that's what we get blinded by. We see all our mentors or our friends like, oh, they did it, I'm definitely gonna do it, I'm doing the right thing, I did exactly what they did. But then bam, like, something happens and that can no longer happen anymore. It's like, what do you do? So basically that perfect cookie that I explained is crumbled, but it's still edible. You can still be successful with another career of your choosing.
That's right.
So,
as opposed to just saying, the heck with it all, it's over. Like there's always still opportunities, and regrouping and repiecing sometimes is super challenging for people because the focus. So you use the example of the career. I was so focused on being a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor, and that didn't happen. In my world, professional basketball world, you oftentimes have, and I'll use myself as an example. Like, I love playing basketball as a kid, and I always wanted to play, and I did the park all the time. But I just got to the point where I wasn't good enough to get to that next level. So what do you do? And so I now work in professional basketball, but I found other ways to be connected to the sport and be around it. So I think we talk about picking up the pieces, if you will. That's kind of what we're talking about here.
Exactly. So you hit the nail on the head.
Awesome. On this podcast, we talk a lot about boldness. We talk a lot about being courageous. We talk a lot about being audacious, if you will. And I think your chapter on get out of your comfort zone fits nicely because this is what we encourage and promote here.
Right.
So I wonder if you can sort of expand on get out of your comfort zone and talk a little about that chapter.
Right. So this is one thing that is very underrated as well. It's a lot of times, like say you come into a new job and you're promoted to manager. It's like, huh? Like you weren't expecting it, and you're not too comfortable because you're not experienced with leading and managing. So it's like you got to get out of it. You were chosen, so you got to step up. So a lot of times it's people are afraid to do something different, and they're afraid to expand on the unknown. And you have to do that to get to the next level as a young adult. And by next level, I mean really, really unbox your potential. And because you don't know what you're capable of until you try new things.
That's right.
And when you unlock those things and you get out of your comfort zone, you naturally feel more confident. You feel better. It's like, you know what? I achieved that. I did that, and I trusted myself to, accomplish these things. So I think if you get this down now in your 20s, you're going to achieve some great things.
Yeah, sky's the limit for sure. And
definitely,
again, getting used to getting out of that comfort zone, but that takes that leap of faith you got to take. And what's really cool about that is you take that leap and you have success. Now you're gonna have an opportunity to build some momentum, right? And you've done right, and then that next leap, as scary as it may or may not be, you have that success to go, well, I did this before, so why can't I do it again, right? So I think it's important to continue to challenge yourself, really, is what we're talking about here.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Don't stop when the times are tough. I think a lot of us can relate to that because we all experience tough times, and there are instances where we want to stop, isn't it?
Right. I've had several, but I was like, "Hey, Tyler, stop! You got a goal to achieve."
Yeah, well, and it is. It's easy. It's very interesting because it may be easy to stop, but it's actually not, because by stopping, you've killed your momentum, and you now have to restart again. And maybe that restart is going back to the beginning or whatever that might be, but it takes some time to sort of restart. So, something happens, continue to plow through, because I think that very much ties into getting out of your comfort zone. Because if you plow through, you get through your comfort zone, you're on to great things, aren't you?
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. In part 2, you talk about always being yourself. Talk about why this is so important, Tyler.
Oh, this is great, because being yourself is so important, and it's so just overlooked. It kind of bothers me. It's like, why aren't you, like, you're very unique and you're putting that down because someone doesn't like it? Like, come on now. So basically, I'm just encouraging people because as we grow up, a lot of us experience things because we're different outside of our race. For example, I use the Oreo method because that's what I was called, because I wasn't what some of my African-American students thought I should be or how they acted. I was just myself.
Right.
And I was like, well, how is that any different? Like I still have dark skin like you. I'm still African American. Like we're the same. You know, we go back some years ago, we're definitely the same. So it's just realizing that you're unique and you know it's okay to be yourself. You don't have to listen to people that make fun of you or tease you. It's that just means that they don't understand.
Right.
And maybe they're kind of jealous that you're confident to be yourself. I don't know. But I basically wrote it to say, hey, young adult, you're awesome. You're amazing. And like I said, don't let anybody tell you that you're this or that because you're different.
Yeah.
Being yourself is the best thing, one of the best things you can do for yourself.
Absolutely. And you know, I think oftentimes there's a people sort of challenge is being myself enough? And it absolutely is. Like it absolutely is. We all bring something special to the table, something unique. And I think we're obligated to do that for one another. Because if I'm bringing out my best self, that may encourage others to do the same. So you've now written this book, Tyler, that could can inspire people. That might inspire someone to do something great as well. But hey, look, Tyler did this. Maybe I can too, kind of thing. So we owe it not only to ourselves, but other people.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
So.
Agreed. Set the tone or get owned. I love this one. Tell me about this one, Tyler.
Set the tone or get on. It's just what it means. So when you wake up in the morning and you know you're consistently swatting your alarm clock, you're like, I'm not gonna do this. You're basically saying that you're allowing yourself to be owned by laziness and just unmotivated things. And so basically it's if you don't do that, you get up and you have a goal, you want to work out, you want to call your grandma, that's setting the tone. Otherwise, you're letting yourself get on by your laziness. So just saying, hey, and I'm not saying, like I say in the book that it's okay to have lazy days, right? Like everybody needs a day to chill. But if you consistently every day, you're just like, I'm not going to go do this, then you're getting owned by your laziness.
Gotcha. And then I think also what happens is you get owned by it and not even realize it. Because you're so set and sedentary in your ways, you're like, this is just what I do. Not recognizing that you're owned by something else.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's happened to me a few times. I've been lazy and stopped working out and stopped doing things, and I had to remind myself, like, I'm being owned by laziness. I gotta shake this off.
Yeah. So, no. It's a good one. I like that one a lot. I was really one of the ones that definitely jumped out to me. Another one in part two. The last one I want to touch on in part two is be upset, learn, forgive, and then learn from it. All of those things, no one listening to us will debate that they don't understand that. They all understand it. Well, all three of those things involve actually doing. Like you got to do it, right?
Right.
It's hard. It's always easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that chapter was really influenced. In the book, I talk about a story how I got really upset with my middle school coach and flipped him off, and I was like, I just embarrassed myself, my team, my parent. Like I was just so heated, I didn't even care about what was going on. So basically, I realized that as upset as I was, I was wrong, and I, as mad as I was, I forgave him.
Right.
Because I realized I can't be upset for forever. And after I forgave him, I sat down and I learned from it. I learned, hey, I can't go around flipping people off, flip off my boss, and just storm out of the office when I get mad, because then I'll be fired indefinitely. But I have to control that, and then maybe go to his or her office, maybe have a private conversation. Hey, I felt this way. I think this, and they'll, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was happening. You felt that way. And then we'll work it out that way. But if you do it your way when you're upset, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to work out for you.
This is the case. And I like that last piece to learn from it, right? Like, I think the sort of situation that we go through and we haven't picked up on the lesson, I think we wasted the experience, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lesson in everything. So That's a big one. And I also like the fact that you're clearly saying it's okay to be upset. Like being upset isn't a bad thing. Is it fair to say it's a release of emotions?
It is. It's not bad to be mad at all. It's what you do when you're upset is the issue. So as long as you control that anger, and you realize, hey, this is temporary, you can be as mad as long as you want. So
right. So don't Hulk out on people, right? Like you turn green, but then you got to go back, right?
Right. You got to go back and can't go rogue anymore. You gotta stay focused.
Gotcha. I want to jump into the last part, and I'd love to hear your take on the "see you later" versus "goodbye."
Yes. So I didn't understand when I first heard it, but in the book I explained about my friend in school. I told him goodbye. He's like, I don't believe in goodbye. I just say see you later. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, saying goodbye means that you never want to see me again. I'm like, oh, I get it. It's like goodbye, see you later. Like, and then see you later is like, okay, I'm looking forward to seeing you again. So just that verbiage, I made a story about it and translated to when you finally move out, your family, your friends, it's not a goodbye, it's a see you later.
Right.
Because although you're an adult, we still rely on our parents for things or whoever. And you're not going to never see them again. It's not like a goodbye. You're definitely going to see them later, and they care about you, and they will always support you no matter what age you are. So it's just realizing that you will always have support. So.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the importance of mentorship.
Right.
I want to spend some time on this because I think this is a really important one. Mentors can make a world of difference for people in so many ways. I wonder if you could sort of elaborate there on that, Tyler.
Yes. So as we navigate through life, there's situations and things that we may not fully understand or things that we need more guidance on that maybe someone else that we rely on can't do. And a lot of times that's our mentors. And, they'll say you want to be a pilot, like I say in the book, when you have a buddy or like your parents have a buddy that's retired or currently a pilot, it's like, hey, I can talk to him or her about, doing this career and seeing if it's really for me. Or maybe this person went to this high school, I can get some guidance on the history of it and how I can, get through this high school. And so, having a mentor is just such a blessing because it's almost like you're getting something from the past. I call it a good blast from the past. So, because they literally been there and done that, and you're a newbie, and you need to just sit back and drink this knowledge. So, and if you don't, a lot of time when you try to figure things out your way, it will go south in a heartbeat. So your mentor is like, hey, I've done that. Hey, go on this road, not that one.
No, and I think it's so important. And the thing with mentors is that they can certainly save you a whole whack of time. That's for sure.
Right.
And maybe some painful lessons that you don't necessarily need to learn. Even though, again, although we said lessons are important to learn, the painful ones we could probably do without. Right. So I think mentorship is big. You can have a whole bunch of mentors. You can have one mentor. There's no limit on this. You can you can have a bunch at once or whatever. There's just no limit on that because it's all knowledge that you're drinking or soaking in, right? So
right. So I actually encourage that to have multiple mentors because I currently do. So
right.
And also realizing that when you have a mentor, you may surpass them and like say they were a certain position at the company you're in and you surpass that. Now you have to find a new mentor because they don't have that experience. They can no longer guide you.
Right.
So it's okay to branch out. You can still be talk to them. You don't have to just like, hey, see ya. Thank you for everything. But you can you have to gravitate to a new mentor that has done what you're doing so that you can be successful.
Got you. And also too, sometimes we can have mentors who we've never actually met, but maybe they've written books or maybe they've done teachings or lessons, or these days, YouTube videos on just about anything, and maybe use that to help guide you, and that can certainly serve as a mentor. Maybe not necessarily the reciprocal back and forth that you get for the traditional sense, but certainly you can still learn from people and other people.
Right.
So,
and that's definitely true. So
awesome. The last point that I wanted to touch on, and probably one of my favorites, having fun. How big is it to have fun, Tyler?
Oh, it's so huge because, like I said before, we get caught up in work and everything, and we just forget to have fun. It's like, after you prioritize your day, you take care of your responsibilities. Go to that block party, go to these events because you earned it, you deserve it, or indulge in your hobbies. Because if you just do one thing every day, you just get burnt out. Because I always say too much of anything is a bad thing.
Right.
So just make sure you enjoy yourself, relax, have fun after you complete your task. And, that way you don't get burnt out. And, you enjoy life to the fullest. So
absolutely. I think back to, when you're a kid, the days seem so long, right? And as you get older and become an adult, everything speeds up, right? And the last thing you want to know is that, you went through all this time and you didn't have fun, right? You didn't enjoy it. Like it was just, you were going through the motion. So I echo with you on that having fun. I strive to do that as much as possible. It's kind of where I live my life. And I think that was a great point to close out on. So great job, Tyler. It really is. I love the fact that you focused, it was very clearly focused. You knew who you're talking to, young people, wanted to get a really important messages out. And I think you hit it bang on, man. Great job.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm working on other projects now, and I just really have a passion for writing now. So that was kind of new with the Costco story, that the writing kind of popped up as well. It's like, oh, I like doing this.
Yeah.
So,
and that's it, right? This is, you get out there and try stuff and do stuff, and instead of just thinking about it, just go out and do it, right? So, we talk that you want to be bold, be audacious, just go out and do it. Don't just think about it. Like if you, it's great to think about and conceptualize, but never wonder if, just try it. So I think that's exactly what you're doing. I think it's phenomenal. I think this book, regardless who you are, whether you're an outgoing young person or you're an introvert, whatever. I know that was one of your chapters in the book on introverts. But regardless where you are, I think this is a really useful tool for you. I love the fact that you're zeroing in on young people, saying, "Hey, this is for you," and I'd encourage everyone to go check it out. Where can our listeners go to learn more about you and the book?
On Amazon, they have the author page. You can read my bio. You can visit my social media. It's my Instagram _TMAC 28. Facebook's my name, Tyler McCalister. So yeah, you can follow me on social media, which I actually have them in the book too, towards the end. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So listen, Tyler, I appreciate you doing this. Thank you for the time. Again, congratulations on a great book, and all the best, my friend.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to your podcast. This is great.
Awesome.
Back we are here on the podcast, and first off, got to send a big shout out to Tyler for not only just being on the podcast, but for writing Young, Grown, and Knowledgeable. I think the message that you shared with your peers is an important one and definitely worth hearing. And I'm really glad that you not only wrote the book, but you shared it in the way you did. And I can't wait to see what your next book looks like. When I reflect on my conversation with Tyler, he left us with so much to think about. But if there's just one thing I take away from our conversation, it would be this. There's such an awesome power when we can thoughtfully and openly share our respective journeys with one another. The advantages are tremendous, and I encourage you to do so. The benefits and impacts that we can have on people in a positive fashion, stirring up the compassion, the gaining of wisdom and knowledge, and in some cases, depending on the circumstances, we could even provide healing, plus so many other advantages. I think the one that stands out most to me is the motivation that we can provide to other people. We have no idea the profound difference we can make in the lives of others, and think by sharing our victories, our setbacks, and our challenges.
Hey, listen, if you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, do know that you can do so by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com. All you've got to do is enter in your email address and you will be immediately alerted every time we've got brand new content that comes out. We've reached the end of another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. And as always, I want to take this opportunity to thank our tremendous listeners. You are absolutely amazing. The lovers of audaciousness, I thank you. It's because of your support why this podcast continues to grow and develop. So on that note, until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audacious Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.